So won't you just please join me in welcoming our guest speaker, Mark Moses.
Thanks, Steve. So the pledge reminded me of the first time I had to do the pledge. It was at Chapman University. So what Steve didn't tell you is I'm not an American. I'm Canadian. So they wanted to honor me at Chapman University to do the pledge. I'm in the car with my wife and said, the pledge? I don't know the pledge. So just started, I'll give you the first few words and everybody else will join along with you. So it reminded me of that moment. I hadn't thought about that for a while. So we're going to do 4 things today. First thing is, I'd like to give you a bit of a background on my story so you get a sense of who I am and what my journey was all about. Then I'd like to talk to you a little bit about my book, Make Big Happen, which was #1 on Amazon in the US and Canada, which we are proud of. And then I'd like to share with you the 16 things that I have learned coaching top performers, top performance CEOs around the world. And finally, if we have time, I'll share a few case studies that you probably know some of the companies and you'll find the stories interesting. So I'll move pretty quick, and if we have time at the end, we'll do some questions. So I'll begin with my father. My father was an entrepreneur, had a clothing business. It's called Moses Menswear for something original. He sold suits to men, and he was the first guy to bring jeans to our town in the 70s. And during some tough economic times, my dad ended up struggling like many other small entrepreneurs in our small town called Sudbury, which is 5 hours north of Toronto. And my dad ended up filing bankruptcy my last year of high school. So it was, in one way, it was tough watching my father struggle and my mom beat on him because he was failing, and if she listened to him, maybe he wouldn't have failed, she claims. And having to go to college and needing to make my own money because my dad didn't have any money now to support me for college. So in my first year of college, I saw a sign in the Career Center. It said, be your own boss. Be an entrepreneur. Make $5,000 to $15,000 of a franchise. As you can see, that's my van. I painted it myself. I know it's not that pretty, not that good a job. We did a better job on the homes that we did. So set up this little painting business, and in the first summer, did $70,000 worth of business and made $18,000. Wow, this is cool. I was 19. And in Canada at the time, cost me $4,500 a year to go to school. I was going to school to be an accountant. I thought, man, I like this entrepreneur stuff. So I decided to do it again the following summer. And pardon the photo, it was the 80s. I made $35,000 in the summertime, and I thought, wow, I don't need to be an accountant. I can hire an accountant. I'm going to be an entrepreneur. So I packed up my U-Haul, and I drove up south from Toronto to Texas, turned right, and eventually rolled into Southern California. And so it's now 1987. Here I am. For those that, some of you are young, you probably don't remember this time, but I remember it well. I got here the day after the Whittier earthquake. So some of you probably remember that. So everything on the news was preparing for the big one, so I was intimidated. So the journey continued. We had an amazing journey. We set up the student painter business here in California, grew it from 0 to 250 locations, 3,000 people in 4 years. Sold the business 4 years later and didn't know what I wanted to do, but I wanted to do something new. So during that period of time, I bought my first home in Fountain Valley. And this guy I had met did my first loan on my home, my mortgage. Because I had one. So, along that journey, I met this young lady. We got married. Typical Jewish style here. This is Jacques. Jacques was my best man. Anybody recognize him? No? Okay, good. So Jacques needed a job. It was local. He was also Canadian, and I hired him at my firm. So he does a great job. We opened a new office. Jacques was running it. We went from 0 to $200,000 in profit per month in 9 months. Wow, amazing journey. So a little later to this story, we get in a dispute. He bails, sets up a competing company 2 blocks away. He takes 85% of the people out of that office to set up this competing firm. It was a drag. My best buddy got greedy, left, set up a competitor. Very frustrating to have that happen. Then we survived that, and then we had a fire. Just down the street, here in Irvine, in our building. We had an explosion in the building. We thought Jacques did it. I don't think he did, but anything's possible. And they told us we wouldn't be able to get back into our building for 3 months. What a drag. It was 1997, before working virtually was possible, so we would have been out of business. Somehow, we figured out a way. We hooked up an 18-wheeler to the building. We had no ceiling because it was all burnt. We lost all our electronics, computer system, phone system, and we figured out how to jerry-rig it and work like that for 2 months. And we were able to go on and survive that. We then, when I met Steve, we went on and became the Entrepreneur of the Year for Orange County, the #1 fastest growing business in Los Angeles, and number 10 on the Inc. 500. And it was an amazing journey. We took the business. It was called Platinum Capital. Anybody heard of it? No? It was, we employed here in Southern California about 500 people. So it was a decent-sized firm, and it was fun. We had a good time at the company. We built it to $1.6 billion in annual business. Just remember all my experience in the mortgage business. Hire top talent, empower them, don't hire your best man, and you can build an amazing entity. So we did. We're now making $1 million a month. Amazing journey. Wow. I was in my early 30s. Thought, wow, this is really fun. You work hard, put your head down, you hire the right people, you keep working hard, you inspire them, you can build a great business. So this was the lead story in the Orange County Register. Wall Street collapses and the liquidity markets collapse in 1998. So for those that were around during that time, there's a few things that happened. Russian flu or Asian crisis, the hedge fund crisis with long-term capital, and it forced Wall Street to pull out of our mortgage product. So we now have no liquidity for our business. So imagine having a grocery store and you have absolutely nothing to sell. Eventually your grocery store goes out of business. Well, that's what happened to us. We had a mortgage company, and at that time we were the leader in a certain product, and Dan Marino was on TV as the spokesperson for this product at the time. You probably remember him from the Dolphins. Bob Vila, anybody remember him from the Home Improvement Show? He was our spokesperson. So we were rocking, but it had ended. And when it ends, there's nothing in the grocery store, you end. So we suffered trying to reinvent ourselves for 2 years, from October 1998 to October 2000. We decided we weren't going to make it. After raising $1.5 million from family and friends, I had $350,000 in credit card debt. I couldn't get $500 more, and we decided ultimately that it was time to file bankruptcy. Well, that's really a drag. I had a cool home in Newport. I had a boat. I was making lots of money. I had a wife, a 1-year-old, and a wife with that was 9 months pregnant. Not the best timing to have a going out of business sale, but reality is that's where we were. So fortunately, at the 11th hour, you never know how these things happen, my business partner, the guy I told you about at the beginning, went to hear a speaker. It was 2 days before we were filing bankruptcy. The speaker was listening to the talk. He had just sold his business to Sprint for $150 million cash. He hands him our business plan as he's getting ready to leave and go back to Montana. The guy says, I'll take a look at it. He says, look, don't look too long because we're going out of business in 2 days. We need $1 million. So long story short, Friday, the day we were going to file bankruptcy, he wires the money and saved the company. And we survived. We didn't file bankruptcy. We got lucky and survived and went on and thrived. An amazing, lucky success story. Now, my life has been filled with adversity. Mortgage collapse, fire, Jacques, and then this. This is Mason. Mason was 4 years old. He was having headaches and throwing up, and we took him in for an MRI. Mason's got a brain tumor. Have to do surgery today or tomorrow. So we're down at Chalk, great place for anybody that's been there. Mason has the brain surgery, 4 hours. They give him 50-50 chance to live. Mason survives. Complications 2 weeks later, needs another brain surgery for water on the brain. Survives that one too. Mason's 17 today and doing great, fully cured. So again, we got fortunate and lucky that we were able to survive that too. Here he is after the second one. He's a good kid today, most of the time, 17. Pretty normal, tests us from time to time, but generally a pretty good kid. So it's now October 2006. We sell the business. Now, anybody remember what happened just after that in the mortgage business? So sometimes you better be lucky than good, right? So we had a cool business. We're rolling, and I just figured it was time to sell the business. I was done. So we did. We got lucky. That was it, just luck. And I was out. October 13th, 2006. So, took my family to Europe, chartered a boat, cruised around, vacationed, enjoyed life. Year later, October 13th, 2007, did the Hawaii Ironman. Anybody done an Ironman in here? No? Any cyclists around here in the room? So you cycle around here, I'll see you out in the road. Did my first Ironman, it was a good journey. Just a couple other unique things I've done over the years. I've done the Great Wall Marathon. That's an honest effort if those of you that are into marathoning. My son Mason, who I told you about earlier, said he wanted to do a marathon. He was 14. I said, which one? Anywhere in the world, wherever you want to go. That's Antarctica. Yeah, he didn't have that much fun that day. The yellow thing in the back is our hotel. Not the finest of accommodations. A year later, I did the North Pole Marathon. This was in 2016. It's really cold. Minus 23 when we started. That's pretty cold. And knee-deep snow for the first 6.5 kilometers, which is really, really tough. And Mason declined to join us for that event. Smart kid. I've done the rim to rim to rim in the Grand Canyon. Anybody done any hiking in the Grand Canyon? Anybody done the rim to rim? Rim to rim to rim? No? Rim to rim. Yeah, getting up the next morning going, we got to go back? Ouch. Yeah, it was a good journey, but you're right, one way is enough. Got to ring the bell at the NASDAQ. That was a cool experience too. Had my photo up in Times Square, and then they even got my book up in Times Square as well. I I like elephants. You'll hear more about that in a moment. My wife and I rode elephants in Laos last year. That was fun. And every year I do a father-daughter and father-son event. I've been doing it since they were 1. Got a little more exciting as they got older. This was my daughter's trip to Banff and my son's trip to the Ice Hotel in Quebec City. I think I was getting them ready for, because it was cold in there too, sleeping in the Ice Hotel, getting them ready for Antarctica. And my daughter Darian is a freshman at the University of Michigan. So that's a little background on me. Let me tell you what I'm up to these days. So I run a coaching company. We coach CEOs all over the world. Great stories, like one of the largest Verizon dealers in the company, or in the country. Grasshopper.com was my client. We sold them to Citrix for $172 million a few years ago. Complete Nutrition, which was a spinoff from GNC, and Lending Tree is a client of ours. You may have heard of them, publicly traded, one of the top performing stocks on the NASDAQ, and a number of other companies, typically ranging from $5 million in revenue to $200 million in revenue. That's probably our sweet spot. And then we have some companies up to a couple of billion. We operate in 16 countries, just coaching the CEOs, mostly private companies. That's our team. I started it myself and then got sold out, so I had to bring on some of my clients as we exited and some of my buddies that were top performing CEOs. So that's a group that does that. And what makes us popular is this. Almost all our business comes from referrals because this is our CAGR, compounded annual growth rate. So our clients over a 4-year period grow on average at 35% year over year. So if you want to listen to anything I have to say, ask me how that happens. But this is the slide that's a little bit more attractive, which our average client grows at 111% in profit year over year. So that's probably even more meaningful, especially when you're a $100 million or $200 million company. Doubling that top line is a big deal. So the book, Make Big Happen, how many readers have read it? Anybody? 1, Steve. It's inspiring. It's not the typical business book. It's an inspiring book based on, if you read the reviews on Amazon, this is what it says. It's a blend of all the cool books that you probably read into one with a real-life entrepreneurial story, and it's based on 4 simple questions. What do I want? How do I get what I want? What's going to get in my way? And how do I hold myself accountable? Let's start with question 1. What do you want? I love the crystal ball exercise, and you guys have in front of you this, you don't need to do it now. It's on page 4. This is what it looks like. You can see it up on the screen. Basically, it says this. Imagine you're looking into a crystal ball, year is come and gone, and you rocked because you achieved what? How many could write down right now what the what is? Clear goals for the year. Every CEO I've ever met gets an F. This is a school institution here of learning, so you probably know what an F is. It's not a good grade. On question number 2, what are the specific and measurable activities that lead me to that outcome? Imagine that. Try that on yourself. What do I want? And what is the number 1 specific and measurable activity that will lead me to the outcome that I want? How many could do that well right now? Hands up. All right, volunteer with a running shirt on, okay. What's your goal for the year?
To be able to semi-retire from my personal training, gym business, and put more time to creating some more residual income.
Okay, what's the number 1 specific and measurable activity that will lead you to the outcome that you want?
Working my plan, which is we're doing a 21-day list right now. It's social media, promoting actually whitening toothpaste, which is the hot thing on social media right now. Getting people involved with our company and creating
What grade are you going to give that? A D? D? Anybody else? I asked for specific and measurable. I heard blah, 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 something about toothpaste and something about, I don't know, social media. What is the specific and measurable activity that will lead me to the outcome that I want? Let me give you an example. You'll like this one better. Sorry to pick on you, you volunteered. Client of mine's in the wealth management business. I want to add $70 million in new assets to my firm this year. Terrific. What's the specific and measurable activity that will drive that outcome? I need to do 400 prospect meetings this year. Okay. Is that specific and measurable? Yes. All right. Not good enough. What's a specific and measurable activity that will drive that outcome? I need 2,000 people to attend my seminars. Oh, okay. So 2,000 people will get 400 prospect meetings, and based on our historical conversion rate, we'll close the clients to drive the $70 million number. Great. How are we going to get the people to the seminars? What's a specific and measurable activity? We need to make 21,000 phone calls to engineering firms in Kansas City. What is the root? If the calls don't get made, the people don't attend the seminars, they don't attend the seminars, the prospect meetings won't happen. The prospect meetings don't happen, we don't close the $70 million. It's January, what, today? 12th? 12th? So, December 31st ended, he did $88 million. What am I holding him accountable to? Not the goal, not the lag result, the activity, the phone calls. If he does the phone calls, it's a cascading funnel that will let everything else happen. We're working here in town with an electronics firm yesterday and today. Here they are. People have flown in from all over the world. Competent people running a business in excess of $100 million of revenue. Ask them that question, they too get an F. They give you blah, 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 blah. Or they give you a lag indicator or a lag result. So we want to achieve $125 million in revenue next year at an EBITDA of 16%. What's the number one activity that will drive that outcome? Hire more salespeople. What grade would you give that? Right. How would you clean that up? And how much would they be selling at what gross margin? And then we're going to try, what are the activities they're going to do that are going to drive the outcome that we want? So I would encourage you to take the crystal ball exercise home and do it for yourself. I'll give you my own example on my crystal ball exercise. You're a runner, I can see by the shirt. Yes? Or you just wear it for fun? Okay. So I want to run a marathon before I get too old in 2 hours, 59 minutes and 59 seconds. Anything under 3. So what are the specific and measurable activities that will lead me to the outcome that I want? I need to run 800s at 2 minutes and 50 seconds. I can do that. That's a specific and measurable activity that I needed to do to achieve that outcome. So I got this trainer, some of you may know him, Coach Sumner. I go to the track, I train with him, he yells at me, tells me I'm going too slow, but I'm getting close. So that's my goal, and those are the activities in addition to the regular running I do to achieve the outcome that I want. Make sense? You bored? No? Okay, just checking. All right. What do you have to do? So in a business, I love the provocative questions. How many here have their own business? How many work for a business? So imagine this question. You start a new company. So what are we doing today that there's no way we would do in the new company? What are we not doing that we ought to be doing? And knowing what we know about us, how would we compete with us? Like the questions? Hard, right? What are we not doing that we should do? What are we doing we shouldn't do? And how would we compete with us? Terrific questions. Try it for your business. Everybody has the will to win. Few have the will to prepare to win. I love that. So, the 5 things I've learned that the CEO ought to focus on, only 5. Most of the people I speak with and coach are CEOs. It's vision, cash, you're ultimately responsible for cash, having the right people in the right jobs, key relationships inside the firm and out, and a process to continue to learn. How many are CEOs in the room? How many agree that if I focused on those, vision, cash, right people in the right jobs, key relationships, and a process to continue to learn, and dealt with nothing else, I could move the ball? Too many leaders get sucked into the whirlwind of the day-to-day of the business. They get pulled in to all that stuff that they don't want to do or don't need to do. And then they don't advance the ball because they're caught up in the day-to-day of the business. What could get in the way? Well, our own blind spots, right? For example, our inability to delegate because we're a control freak. If I don't do it, it won't be done right. We get distracted by shiny new objects. Hey, I want to try this or try that. Accountability. Don't have a scorecard with the specific and measurable activities. And there's all kinds of other blind spots that we all have that we need. Maybe it's our ego. It could be all kinds of things that get in the way. So I also like the stop doing list. What are the things that I'm doing today that I ought to stop doing? Who ought to start doing them on my behalf, and when? All these little tools are in that little packet I brought along for you. I just like these tools because how many are doing stuff today that they don't want to do anymore? How many want others to do that stuff? It still needs to get done, but you just don't want to do it, right? Get it off your list so you can focus on the most important things and let others do the stuff that you don't want to do. How do you hold yourself accountable? Well, I like scoreboards. Scoreboards are big and visible and you can see them. Either you do it or you don't. Scoreboard doesn't lie, right? You go to a basketball game, you like the scoreboard? How would you feel if you went to a basketball? You may not like the score, but at least you know what the score is, right? Imagine going to a game that doesn't have a scoreboard. How do you like it now? Right? So keep score of, I like keeping score of not only the outcome, but the activities. Imagine, like I told this group yesterday, when I come back a quarter from now, I'm going to ask you this. What went right this quarter? What went wrong? What did you learn? How did you do compared to how you said you would do on the result and the activities that you said would lead you to the outcome that you want? Keep score. You can have a coach. You may recognize a few of these faces because mostly local guys-ish. These have been my coaches over the years. Marshall Goldsmith over here wrote the book, What Got You Here Won't Get You There. If you haven't read it, it's a great read on leadership. Vance Caesar, also another local guy, coached the eBay guys. And Richard Carr was the CEO of Vistage Tech. Some of you may remember that. He was on my board for 10 years. And these are my health and fitness coaches. I need more of those than I do for business. And some of them are chiropractors and physical therapists. And there's my old guy from the track. Some of you may recognize his smiling yet grumpy face. So what did I learn coaching the top performing CEOs? Here's a list. Number 1, they think big. Top performing CEOs think big, without limits. Branson says, if people aren't calling you crazy, you aren't thinking big enough. Fair enough. They have passion. Nobody would argue that Michael Phelps didn't have passion about what he did. Steve Jobs, passion? Absolutely, to his final days. Did he do it for the money? He didn't. He didn't need more money. He loved what he did. How about Warren Buffett? How old is he now? late 80s, right? And he's still at it. Doesn't need any more money, right? But he's doing it. And look, I'm sure it keeps him young and smart as can be. But he's doing what he's truly passionate about. Top performing leaders have vision. They know where they're going. Do you know where you're going? This guy know where he's going? Well, I'm not sure. This is his 10-year vision announced in 16 for 2026. You can figure that out. Well, this was my vision. I wanted to do $1 billion. So I said to my assistant, I'd like you to bring everybody from our other offices down to our building. I'd like you to tear a wall down. I'd like you to hire me an elephant, and I'd like to ride the elephant into the annual meeting. And the message was, if you think big and act big, you will be big. Let's do $1 billion. That's with a B as in Bob. So this was NBC later that day.
Call it a new way to beat traffic. Up next, this picture is worth 1,000 words. We'll explain. An Irvine executive thinks big for 1997. OCN's Brooke Robbins reports the executive had quite a surprise for his employees on Thursday.
Not every day you see an elephant walking into an office. But then again, it's not every day the CEO of Platinum Capital tries to motivate his staff in a big way. Afterwards, Moses took Kitty, the 8,000-pound Asian elephant, for a ride down the street.
And no word on what's planned for next year's meeting, but one employee says he projects his boss will go through the roof.
Well, that was fun. The coolest part was the next day, our employees started bringing elephants into work. Not real ones, but stuffed ones, crystal ones, ceramic ones, putting them on their desk. And the concept was, hey, dude, you're crazy, but you know what? We're with you. And literally, this was 1997. In 2005, we hit $1 billion. And in 2006, we hit $1.6 billion. So it's amazing. If you think big, if you believe, if you have vision, you'll ultimately get to where you want to go. My client, the Verizon dealer, showed up at my home. He's from North Carolina. He had just lost $8.5 million. So we'll call that, I'm on the verge of going out of business. So he was doing $100 million, but got himself upside down and lost $8.5 million. Now, his bankers are, you're out of room, guy. So he announced at his annual planning session we were going to do $1 billion. $1 billion over the next 10 years. And the team went, that's crazy. We can't do $1 billion. We're lucky to stay in business. Well, the financial guy calculated the growth rate. It was only like 23% year over year. Not that big a number. May sound big, but it's not that big. Well, we achieved in the next 3 years, $330 million. We sold the business for $200 million. And now he is chairman of the company 6 years later at $1.8 billion in annual business. Here's a guy that was thinking big and had the vision. Top performing leaders have a specific plan to drive the outcome that they want. And I want to go back to, you hear me drum beating on this, and it's because I spend a lot of time with leaders. If you don't know the activities that will lead you to the outcome that you want, I promise you, you won't hit them. You won't get lucky and do that. Figure out the activities and you'll get the outcome that you want. Top performers know how to execute. Now, why do you think people fail to execute or businesses fail to execute repeatedly? How many are in business? Why have you seen or poor processes and systems? Why else? George?
Lack of intentionality.
Okay, what else? Yes?
The wrong people.
Wrong people. Right, I agree. Hire top talent. The number one reason businesses fail to execute is because they don't have the right people. So the answers I hear all the time, you don't understand my business. You don't understand what it's like here in Shanghai. You don't understand what it's like here in Manila. It's different in Kansas City. The people here, they're different. What I have learned is those are limiting beliefs. Hire the best people in the world and you'll get the outcome that you want. Google, LinkedIn, and Facebook. 97% of the best data scientists in the world work for those three firms. The other 3% work for everybody else. Now, why are those firms leading? They have the best people. Some of you may recognize this Orange County guy, Jack Daly. Anybody recognize him? Jack founded a firm called Glenfed Mortgage, ran Glendale Federal Bank, ran the mortgage company at Security Pacific Bank, ran the mortgage company at Fleet Bank. So I hired him to work at my lemonade stand as our number 2 guy. And Jack helped us scale from, at the time, a $24 million business to over $1.6 billion in business. Hire top talent. So how did I get Jack? People say to me all the time, well, yeah, but you had a business, you were making lots of money, how'd you get him? How do you think I got him? How do you think I got Jack? All right, a relationship with Jack, okay, that was a start. How about you in the back, young guy in the blue shirt? Man, you're going to go places. That's the exact right answer. He was used to flying on private airplanes and helicopters. Well, I didn't have those, but I sold him on the vision. I got him to believe what we could achieve together, and I gave him a piece of the business as well as an incentive to join me. So that's how I got Jack. I've also learned that the people that got you to where you are today aren't the people that are going to get you to where you want to go. It's sad, but it's true. It happens in every firm that I go into. When I blog about this, it's not always popular, but it is the bottom line. That if you're a $10 million company today, the people that got you to 10 aren't the people that are going to get you to 100 or 200 or 300. They've just never been there before. They've never walked down that road. Now, they can still be with your firm if they want to be, but they can't be the leader of the band in that area because they just don't know how. And some people say, well, you don't understand. I can't let that person go, or I can't demote them, or I can't bring someone over top of them because we play golf together. Our kids go to school together. Our wives are friends. She lives in my neighborhood. He's been with the company since the beginning. What's everybody else going to think? That's all your baggage that you're dealing with. If you don't put the right people in the right seats, it's okay. You're not going to build a high-growth company. Top-performing leaders have confidence. If you believe you can or you can't, you're right. My daughter Darian does crew in the Back Bay, and she rode at NAC. She says to me one day, Dad, we're going to play second today. I thought it was a kind of an unusual response. Second? Okay, good for you. Why second? Well, the other team they're really good. They're from Northern California. They're the best. They win all the time. Okay, you believe that? You're right. I know I'm just your dad, but here's just something to think about. Why don't you go inspire your team? And today, we're going to work harder than we've ever worked before and inspire your girls to believe that today we can win. So she did, and they won. If you believe you can or you can't, you're right. I believe, despite everything my buddies tell me, that I will do a 2:59 marathon. All my buddies tell me not possible. I'm motivated to prove them all wrong. Top performers take calculated risk. This friend of mine, also a local guy, some of you might know, Monish Pabrai. He says, I like to make bets where heads I win and tails I don't lose much. So he bought lunch on eBay with Warren Buffett for $600,000. 600 grand for lunch? With anybody? He said it's a calculated bet. Firstly, $600,000 isn't a lot of money to him. Secondly, if I have lunch with Warren Buffett, my mentor, can you imagine what I could learn? And can you imagine I'm going to get covered on CNBC, Fox News, I'm going to sell out my fund. Well, all that came true, and he's still buddies with Warren Buffett today. Top performers have tremendous focus and discipline. So if I were to tell you the big two of why people don't execute, wrong people, and they're running around chasing shiny new objects. Their focus and discipline needs to improve. I believe you get what you intend. I've also learned that less is more. That Verizon example I gave you a moment ago, when I got there, they showed me the 24 goals that they wanted to achieve for the year. I said, oh, that's really good. Which 3 are we going to do? So we spent the rest of the day arguing about what 3 goals we were going to do and had the best year ever the year after, because less equals more. Top performer leaders measure everything, and they ask why repeatedly. I love this example. Root cause analysis, Toyota invented this concept. Why did we fall 5% short? We made fewer sales calls this month. Well, why did we make fewer sales calls this month? So you want to go and you want to say your sales guys didn't work hard enough, right? Well, we had fewer leads to work with. Maybe it's a marketing problem. Why did we have fewer leads to work with this month? We sent fewer email offers. Why did we send fewer email offers? We were short-staffed. Why were we short-staffed? We didn't plan well for 2 people that were on vacation. So think about, the quick answer would have been, you'd be on your sales guys that weren't working hard enough. However, the real issue was, the root cause was a different issue. Let me go back to that example I gave you, the $70 million. If we fell short of the prospect meetings, what was the reason? It might have been that we didn't make the phone calls that we said we would make, or we didn't have enough people to call on the people to make those calls. Top performers have a coach. I've had a coach since I was 24. It's just been good for me. I'm a different client than most of my clients. I'm kind of hardcore. I show up and go, here's my list of 6 items. I've ranked them in order of priority. Man, you're pretty intense today. All good? Yes. How you feeling? You want to cover how I'm feeling? We'll make it number 7 if we have time. So, anyway.
You guys have received so many different kinds of advice, I don't know where to start. One that comes to mind is to have a coach. Our board member in 2002, John Doerr, said, you need a coach. And I said, well, I don't need a coach. I'm an established CEO. Why would I need a coach? Is something wrong? He said, no, you need a coach. Everybody needs a coach. So Bill Campbell became my coach and has served Google very well. Every famous athlete, every famous performer has somebody who's a coach. Somebody who can watch what they're doing and say, is that what you really meant? Did you really do that thing? And give them perspective. The one thing people are never good at is seeing themselves as others see them. A coach really, really helps.
Top performers have courage. They're willing to be unpopular at times and make the decision that's in the best interest of the firm. Top performers celebrate their victories along the way. Top performers have a stable home life. Anytime I got a client going through a divorce or a health issue or a family health issue, drug addiction issue with kids, anything like that, they don't perform well. When life is good at home, relationships are good, health is good, people perform better. They're not distracted. Ask this guy. Oh, that was mean. Top performers take care of themselves and exercise regularly. Top performers never give up. Those are the 16 things I learned coaching top performers. So I would encourage you, which one of those would help you be more effective? Spend some time thinking about which one of those will make you a better leader. Here's a few case studies. Grasshopper. There are the young guys. Here's one of the founders. Here's the other founder. Started coaching them when they were 27. So what enabled them to sell the business when they were 33 for $172 million? This was it. Every quarter, we got together and we figured out the 3 things that we needed to do all quarter that were in line with our annual plan, defined the specific and measurable activities, and had a scorecard to hold ourselves accountable. When we met every week, I wasn't there, but when they met every week, what did they spend the time on? On the activities that would lead to the outcome that they agreed to at that quarterly meeting. Not the loudest, most urgent thing that came up yesterday. And where too many people get distracted is they get distracted by the loud, urgent, rather than the important. This guy, Ron Carson, big thinker, big visionary, runs a company called Carson Wealth. He's been the top of the Barron's list for years. What has enabled him to be successful? Well, he had a business that was doing $3 billion in revenue, and when he had this plan to go to $5 billion, which is a big leap, he said, what would happen if I added a 0 to it? He calls it the concept of zero. 50 billion. So we made a 10-year plan to do 50 billion. So we're 4 years into it, and we're ahead of plan. So what's enabling him to do that? 1, thinking big and having a big vision. 2, putting the right people in the right seats to enable them to achieve that outcome. This guy here, Sheldon Walitsky, he's from North Carolina. We've gone from 18 million to 140 million. What has enabled him to do that? What do you think it is? He's in the staffing business, IT staffing. Not very sexy. What's enabled him to grow that much? What do you think it is? How about one of the kids in the back? Hat on backwards. No. Try again. Okay, that's a fair answer, doing all these things. Not all of them. Right people in the right seats, quarterly, getting together with the leadership team to agree on what the goals are and defining the activities. These guys are a cool story. Heard of the company called TaskUs? Anybody? Amazing story. These guys are 31, so for the young guys, get inspired, okay? So listen to this. 31 years old, I met them when they were doing $5 million in revenue. So we went from 5 to 15 to 52 to 120 million, to 80 to 120 million last year. 180 million's in the bag this year, 2018. Our clients at the time were, we had one main client, Uber. We've since picked up, in our meeting, in our quarterly meeting, we decided we want one more Uber. Be amazing, just one. So we got Spotify, Tinder, LinkedIn, Twitter, House. We just signed a small firm you probably heard of, Facebook, Uber Eats, Postmates, DoorDash. Man, we are rocking, and they're 31, and they're beating out all the billion-dollar competitors. What's making that happen? Green sweatshirt. How are they doing that? Yeah, firstly, clear goals. For us, it was find another Uber and determining the activities that will drive that outcome. Now, they're 31. These guys, remember we talked about the people that got you here won't get you there? Well, we just hired. We went to the billion-dollar firms and hired their best people from our competitors, which enabled us to get the outcome that we wanted. And they just won the Entrepreneur of the Year in LA. And this is the Verizon guy. I've told you enough about him. I won't tell you any more about him. Pretty cool story, just a regular guy. Regular guy, sold his business for $200 million when he was 36. So here's an example of my goals. I'll show mine and my kids with you to give you an idea that things that get measured get done. So these are my goals for the year. Some of my business goals. Oh, I'm going to go back to school. I decided to do the Harvard Owner-President Program. I thought it'd be neat to do. So I'm going to do that this year. I figure I can learn something. There's Darian's goals. These are posted on our fridge at home, so nobody can hide. Ain't no retentive dad, huh? It's required. Every January 1st, everyone's got to present their goals. And then we do a review of the prior year goals. Every Sunday night we have a family meeting, and we take turns running the family meeting. Here's Mason's goals. He's really into Bitcoin and Ripple these days, so he thinks he's going to be a billionaire doing that. All right, I'm getting close to wrap up. I'm going to wrap up in the next 5 minutes. So if I leave you with two concepts, I'll call it the big two. It's this. Do you believe good is good enough? What do you think? No. What I've learned, there are many people that say, I've spoken at events, and the topic is just this topic, is good good enough? Yeah, it's good enough. She's good enough. He's good enough. If you want to build a world-class company, good is not good enough. And you have to have the courage to be willing to be unpopular and go out and get the very best people. If you want to build a world-class company, go out and get the very best people. For all the youngsters in the room, I can tell you I've learned it repeatedly. Remember I told you about the mortgage business I was in? Ask me, in the $1.6 billion that we did in a year, how many loans I ever did in my whole life. How many think the answer is? 0. It's 0. I don't even know how to do one. I have no clue. I hired the very best people. I coach some leading technology companies. I coach telecommunications companies. I coach companies that are in manufacturing, wealth management, in all kinds of industries that I can't even spell. Most of the time, I don't know what they're talking about. But if I can get my clients to follow best practices, I will get them to achieve things that others can't help them achieve. Put the right people in the right seats and follow best practices, and you get the outcome that you want. This is my favorite book, Good to Great, and Jim Collins. I won't give you all his quotes right now, but I love doing a rant on his quotes. But one of my favorites is, if you have cancer in your arm, you have to have the courage to cut off your own arm. I'll move over here to the next point is the leading activities. If you can determine the few activities that will lead you to the outcome that you want and measure it, you'll achieve that outcome.